In this episode, you'll learn the biggest roadblock to creating stillness within and how to overcome it. Welcome to Energy Alignment for Entrepreneurs, the podcast helping entrepreneurs be free from anxiety, stress, and tension through balancing emotions and consciousness expansion. 3 things you'll discover today: how to recognize your mind is chattering too much, why excessive thinking is stopping you from being who you need to be, and what to do if you're addicted to overthinking and second guessing your decisions. Let's start with recognizing the chatter and feeling that your mind is in a vortex, right? And this is ultimately one of the hardest things to do, and it's easier said than done. But when I say it's hard to do, I don't mean in a grindy sense. I mean in a subtle sense. Whereas so much of humanity is programmed, created, traditionalized. I don't know if that's a word, but the culture, everything is directed in a way where humans are go. And when I use this word leisure, I'll say it sometimes to people in my direct vicinity or family members. And the way that the ego, the self, the me defends itself is sometimes to make a joke out of things, right? That leisure isn't for them. And when I use the sense of leisure, it cannot be confused with doing nothing. Same thing when I use that word to surrender. It's actually one of the most active lifestyles ever. If you understand anything that I've just said, then you may get a sense, awareness to feel that your mind is chattering too much and the lack of space that is in your being when your mind is constantly thinking, ambitiously planning. The funny part about how life works is when you step back from your ambitions, you'll get subconscious, deeper communication where it's like those shower thoughts or those moments where you're just like, I've got it. It's clear. You don't know where that came from, just where you don't necessarily choose what type of people you're attracted to. You don't necessarily choose a lot of things in your life. The decisions you make are happening from a way deeper level than the mind ever wants to admit or recognize. This is all just to lay the fundamental concrete for awareness of the mental chatter, right? I think the way that you find stillness is by seeing that something needs to change. And that's why I bring up recognizing your mind is chattering too much. Because you don't seek a peaceful life. But when you feel that you're out of congruency and you're just too ambitious, you're too busy, you're too self centered on goals, you can potentially step back, honestly, balance that better because you do need skill sets, you do need to build things. I'm not here to say that's wrong, but if there is a imbalance in the way that you carry yourself, that's going to be seen, whether others point it out to you or animals don't necessarily find themselves attracted to you. Those are just subtle examples. But ultimately, the way that this takes shape in your life is totally individual. So now we'll go to the next point: why excessive thinking is stopping you from being who you need to be. And when I mention the subconscious hints, some people use the phrase downloads. I like to say that it feels like God has sent a lightning bolt into your mind. Insight moves at light speed. You don't think it into existence. So I bring that up because if you're not moving in alignment with leisure, with space, then you cannot hear the moments that the universe is saying, hey, do you hear me? because the universe speaks in that nature. Whereas humanity, tradition, all the works of limitation in the mind speak like, hey, yo, like loud, like the trumpet. But the flute of the universe is usually more subtle. Now, I don't mean to confuse this, whereas there will be powerful moments in your life where it's the universe giving you a bigger dose of truth. And sometimes that feels it's way more than a trumpet. So this is like the metaphorical distinction. There's the flute, which is the subtlety. There's the trumpets of everyday life, which you can also learn through, but that's more so noticing your own reactions, your own projections to others' confusion. And then there's the universe stepping it up and sending tornadoes, volcanoes, and hurricanes, right? You can't confuse a hurricane with a trumpet. And you also can't confuse the flute with a trumpet. But the essence of the flute and the volcano, the hurricane, same thing, just different potency, different elements. Now, if you are not always thinking, then you're going to have the space to recognize when the universe is hinting you towards something or just playing with you, challenging you, breaking down your illusions or confusion. And the fruit of that labor, like listening to what you're being prodded toward, there is a fruit that's beyond words in that. It changes how you behave, how you relate, what you create, the amount of fires that you have to put out in your life, etc. You'll get a much simpler life when you realize that most of the trouble in your life is self-perpetuated. That's sometimes a hard thing to swallow, but we do have to learn how to feel the depths of what we are. And then we can change through that learning. Now, what to do if you're addicted to overthinking and second guessing your decisions? Really? First, you recognize that you are doing that. So, first point, recognizing that you're addicted to overthinking, that your mind is chattering too much. That's a win because that will lead you to questioning yourself, right? And only when you question yourself can you break down the glass ceilings or the illusionary prisons that you may have built. If you don't question it, then Alan Watts says this, where most of humanity would much rather be a bird in a cage than deal with the uncertainty of flying over the ocean and just having that space. I don't know how else to put it in this moment. Now, what to do though? And we'll bridge the second guessing your decisions into this. So, very practically, right? If you have trouble making decisions, you need to simplify your foundation. And that will come in the form of practically better food, sleeping the right amount, like 6 hours to 8 hours, 9 if you want, and getting sunlight and exercise. But besides the very fundamentals of fueling your vessel properly, right? Hygiene, exercise, etc. Very simple things. Then you can create a mind that isn't so movable. Whereas, okay, if you need to make a decision, it's yes, I can do something to change this. And it feels right in front of me, low hanging fruit. Okay, let's change that. Or no, this is something that I can't control, right? For example, a lot of people in relationships are so weak themselves that they attract weak people. And then it's two people who are weak trying to control another because control is not a strong vibration. It's an insecure vibration. Now, if you step back from that, then you'll notice your own insecurity and then you'll realize you can't control certain things. And then you actually get stronger by admitting to yourself that you can't control certain things because a lot of what the mind stays busy with is illusions of things that aren't actually real. Wanting to control another, you really can't. Even if you're like Hitler and you try to control people, that will do something maybe, but it will lead you to your own internal fire. Meaning that as you perpetuate confusion, you're burning yourself. And now, I don't know exactly how Hitler felt on a day-to-day basis, but I can guarantee you he wasn't a peaceful individual in terms of relationship with himself. He may have had moments, I'm sure. Even the most evil people can have moments of kindness. I wouldn't put them out of that. But when you're doing something like he was, it's only natural that your entire being feels what you've created. Because it's been said before, and it's a fact, don't believe me. But every ounce of energy that you exert will come back to you in the same level. So, knowing that and looking at your relationship to practical life, skill sets, money, bills, etc., relationships, just meeting people on the road, whatever. When you don't have to think so much, then you don't have to second guess your decisions. So when you come to make a decision, it's yes, I can change this. No, I can't change this. Okay. What's most natural? What's the next simplest step? Because if you're in a foolish state where you're lost and you're perpetuating pain, wanting to do things that aren't real, controlling others, for example, many other examples, right? I'm not just talking about, but also conformity, right? Trying to please others. It's like two sides of the same coin. Where can we step back to see how one thing leads to another, right? Because that's the art of this work is seeing, okay, you do this, but what created you doing this? And then the thing that created you doing this, was there something that led to that? And it's not a analysis, it's more of a just loose observation of your internal mechanisms of what you are as a human being. And then you do learn, right? And even in the learning, you'll have things that are hard to let go of. That's okay. Don't judge yourself for noticing that you want someone. Hey, at least you have the awareness to see it, because then when you can see it, you can let the grips of that coil, that snake, if you will, loosen up. And nothing can change if you're not aware that something needs to change or that something could change. So let's go to the recap. How to recognize your mind is chattering too much. Step one, ask yourself a question. Really, how did I find myself in this mood? Yeah? If you're in a certain mood or state of being on a given day and it feels hard, heavy, how did I end up getting here, right? Because there's going to be synchronicities between your actions and how you feel and what you are. And that's just the reality. And maybe then you can learn by questioning yourself and unraveling how you work and why excessive thinking is stopping you from being who you need to be. Really, if you don't have space to hear the universe, to hear your truth, to learn from who you are in each moment, then what can you do? And so the excessive thinking cuts off the space. You'll notice that when you're flowing, when you're most in sync, it's as if you're not thinking. It's like you don't have time to think because everything is so smooth, right? If you're surfing, the moment that you start to worry about your balance, you're not going to be surfing anymore. You'll be off the board because that's how flow works. Now, what to do if you're addicted to overthinking and second guessing your decisions? So it's a win to notice that you're addicted to overthinking. And what you need to do is to simplify your relationship and your understanding of A to B, meaning that when you do certain actions, you create certain states. And you don't believe me here. Please don't accept that. But just look at your life, watch what actions you do, and notice how you feel a couple minutes after, 1 minute after, 10 minutes after, 30 minutes after. Just pay attention to that. Because real simply, I could use a drastic example. Whereas if you chug a lot of vodka, obviously, most people with the programming of our world are like, they know what alcohol does. And that's just a drastic example. The essence of this comes in the way subtler forms than ingesting something which is almost poisonous to your internal organs. So, I'm not saying don't drink, do drink. Please, for your sanity, for your family, for all that which you love, just look at how your behavior creates vortexes in your life. And then See, here's where it gets good. Let's stick with the alcohol example. Ingest alcohol, then you have a certain state, and then through that state, you do things, right? And then so many people aren't willing to uproot the initial, which is the thing which creates the state, but then they'll be so busy dealing with the wildfires that they create within the aftermath of what they've done. So that means that we'll say you drink alcohol, then you get super drunk, then you do things that are like, I don't know, they're in you naturally. And maybe you need to make those mistakes to learn about yourself. But a lot of the times with the alcohol, it's like it's showing you what you are when you don't have the awareness to put on the mask, right? Because it makes people more social. Why? Because it gets rid of that part of you, which is like aware in a way. So then you're just speaking. And well, through that, you may create certain ruffles, certain relationships. Then look at what you've created. See, none of this is really about alcohol. It's just a example. What this is about is seeing your relationship to you do one thing that creates something else. And within that something else, you create more things. You are a creator. And the point to life, ultimately, is to live in a manner whereas you are fully accountable. You notice what you're creating every single moment. Because when you live in this way, I'm not saying your life will be perfect, I'm not saying you won't have challenges, I'm not saying things won't be rough sometimes, but I am telling you, I can guarantee you this. Don't believe me, but from the life that I'm walking, it's so clear to me that this work is beautiful beyond words. It revigorates your meaning for waking up every day. And honestly, if you resonate with this, let me know what was the golden nugget from this episode. If there was anything meaningful, anything valuable, let me know what you think there. I appreciate you sincerely. Like, so much. The people, each of you who listen and take the time to change how you move through this world because you're aware of the fact that you're creating, it's priceless. Thank you so much. And so new episodes are out every Monday, Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you do want to learn more, click the link in the description below. You'll get the details on how I can potentially help you be free from anxiety, stress, trauma, so you can stop feeling empty inside.